Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day. In today's video, we're going to take a little bit of a break from breaking down that OpTic versus FaZe final. And today I'm going to bring you my updated power ranking. So in this one, we're going to start at 12. We're going to count all the way down to 1. As always, these videos can get a little bit controversial, so if you see anything along the way that you're not quite sure of, make sure you put it down in the comments. I do my best to get back to each and every one of you. Last thing that I'll say is that my last power rankings were about 3 weeks ago. So when you see how far a team has fallen or how high they have jumped, that's because the last one was a few weeks ago. So without further ado, let's get into my number 12 team, the New York Subliners. And this might be a little bit of a surprise, but right now these guys are trending down and I don't see any relief in sight. I said way back during the summer when this was a rumored roster that I don't think Crim and Clay can work together anymore. I think it got by on 5v5 because you had 3 other people to push the tempo. But in 4v4 with a game that has a time to kill as fast as this one is, it's just not going to work. Their record 1-5, map record 6-17. They are the absolute worst hardpoint team in the game. S&D is 9th. You'd expect with Crim and Clay it be a little bit higher, but it's just not. And Control, they're at 7. So recent matches, they do have a 3-2 win over Boston, which was kind of dicey. But other than that, lost to LA Thieves twice, lost to the Atlanta FaZe, lost to LAG. They are just in a free fall, and I'm not quite sure it's going to turn around. So at number 12, I have the New York Subliners. At number 11, I have a team that I think it was between Paris and New York Subliners for 12. And I think with the roster change to Tom Gravity, I think it makes them a little bit better. And Temp is playing pretty well so far this year. So I give the nod to Paris to put them at 11 just because of the fact that they're trending upwards ever so slightly. Record 1-6, map record 9-20. You can see each of their individual ranks, 11th, 9th, and 10th. And by the way, I forgot to edit this graphic, so look at how old that roster is down towards the bottom. But recent matches, they do only have one official win in terms of the season, and that's over the Seattle Surge, which is kind of an impressive victory, even though they're also in a bit of a free fall. But as of right now, it was between NYSL and Paris at number 12, and I think Paris is trending just a little bit further up, so that's why I put them at 11. Moving on to my number 10 team, I have another squad that I think might be at a little bit of a dead end here, and that's the LA Gorillas. So a few weeks ago, I had them at 9. I moved them down 1. Overall record 2-5, map record 12-17. The only thing that's kind of getting them by is that they're a pretty good hard point team as they're 5th in the CDL. But S&D and Control, they're not getting it done. So this is a squad that I'm not quite sure where they go from here because it's not like they have some young players that can develop and catch their stride and they can kind of propel this team forward. You have Asim, you have Hook, you have Gunless, you have Slasher. And when it comes to these guys, you would figure they would already be one of the top 4, top 5, maybe top 6 teams in the CDL. And if they're not there right now, what's to say that they're going to get there eventually as the season rolls along? I just don't see it. They do have a win over London, which was pretty impressive, but got smoked by the Rocker at the Stage 1 major, lost to London, lost to Rocker again. So LAG, I'm not quite sure where they go from here, but I just don't see them improving as the season goes along. At number 9, I have a team that is in an absolute free fall, which is the Seattle Surge. So I did have them 3 weeks ago at number 1 because at that point in time, you could not deny what they did at the Kickoff Classic and how they started the online qualifier matches. But since then, it has been an absolute free fall. So overall, they're 3-4 with a 12-16 map record. You've started to see Hardpoint, S&D, Control, all of those ranks in the CDL come back down. And look at their recent matches. They started 3-0. They were amazing at the Kickoff Classic, and I think everybody else had just caught up to them. Losses against Paris, OpTic, London, and Florida. That is going to put you in a free fall. I only have them above LAG, Paris, and NYSL because I do think that there's a lot of potential on this roster, especially with the combination of Sib, Pred, and Mac. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but this is a team that definitely has to turn it around. At number 8, I have The Florida Mutineers, which is up 2 from a few weeks ago, overall record 2-4 with a map record of 10-13. Their control is what is holding them into this kind of middle in the pack. So they're second in the CDL in control. They're the absolute worst S&D team, which you could probably expect from this Florida lineup. Then at hardpoint, they're 7th. So this is a squad that I'm a little bit unsure of. If you look at their wins, the only wins that they have are over Seattle and Paris. But other than that, they played Boston kind of close. They played LA Thieves kind of close. So not quite sure where to go with Florida. But I do think that there's maybe a little bit of momentum behind this squad. Only other thing that I'll say is that this roster doesn't really make sense to me either. When you have Awakening and Skies, who was your flex and your main AR from last year, and you bring in another main AR, it just doesn't fit the tempo of Vanguard. So we'll see what Florida does moving forward, but right now I have them at 8. At number 7, I have the Boston Breach. So right now, their overall record is 4-5 with a map record of 18-21. They are terrible in control, the absolute worst team in the CDL, but hardpoint and S&D, they're kind of right there in the middle. So winning a couple of those here and there, if you're going to drop map 3, that can be your path to success. But recently, have a win over Paris, have a win over Florida. The problem is that anytime they've played a top squad, like a Toronto, like a FaZe, like an OpTic, they haven't been able to pull out W's. So I think this is a team that can continue to progress as the season goes along. But right now, I think 7 is a decent spot for them. Between 7 and 6, these could have gone either way. But at number 6, I have the Minnesota Rocker. And the biggest reason why I have them at number 6 is because I think if you look at these rosters, Attach and Standy are the 2 best players of those 8. So I think that they have the potential to turn it around. Plus, they're the number 1 S&D team. So when it comes to the Minnesota Rocker, if you can win your S&Ds and just find a hard point to get good at or a control map to get good at, that can be your path to victory. So right now, they're 3-4 with a map record of 13-16, but they are unbelievable at S&D. Look at their recent matches. They do have some impressive wins, LAG a couple times. And when you look at their season overall, they have played the best competition in the CDL. There's no doubt about it. Strength of schedule wise, they have had the toughest schedule so far. So I have them at 6, but I could see them climbing at least a little bit here as the season rolls along. Getting into the top 5, at number 5, I have the Toronto Ultra, and a few weeks ago I had them at number 2. Last year, they were one of the most consistent teams in the CDL, and right now I'm just not quite seeing it out of them. So they're 4-5 with a map record of 16-19. You can see hardpoint and S&D, they're right there in the top 3. They're struggling at control, but anytime you can be top 3 in both hardpoint and S&D, that gives you a really easy path to victory. So I see Toronto getting better. Recent matches, lost to FaZe, got a win over Boston, got a win sprinkled in there against LA Thieves. But right now, I know that they've played a couple matches with a sub when it came to those online qualifiers. I still think this is a team that as the season goes along, I think that they'll get a bit better. Just right now, the beginning of the season has been a bit rough for them. Getting into my top 4, at number 4, I have the Los Angeles Thieves, which is up 1 spot from where I had them a few weeks ago when they were at number 5. Overall, their record is 6-3 with a map record of 23-15. And what is keeping them in the vast majority of their matches is that they are the number 1 hardpoint team in the game, and their control is pretty good too. If they can just figure out what's going on with S&D, this is a squad that can absolutely be a contender, major in, major out. So recent matches, they lost a tough one there to the Atlanta FaZe, but they did get back-to-back wins in that first major against Rocker and NYSL. So I think eventually they're going to get there. I think it's just going to take some time. If they just figure out a couple S&D maps to be good at, they're going to be contending in each of these tournaments moving forward. At number 3, I have the biggest surprise team so far this year, and that's the London Royal Ravens. So I have them up 1 spot from a few weeks ago when I had them at number 4. My biggest question about this team is how are those rookies going to perform when it came to playing online? And they were tremendous. So overall map record of 6-3, map record of 21-16, and each game mode, they're kind of right there towards the top middle, right? 4th in hardpoint, 5th in control, 7th in S&D. This is a squad that I think that they're super young. They're developing as this season goes along, and I think this is a really good story because for over a year now, both London and Paris have been some of the worst teams in the CDL. So to see London in the top 3, I'm excited to see what they can do moving forward. And Nasty and Gizmo and Afro are disgusting. I think they're waiting on Zero a little bit, but other than that, they've been playing pretty well. You look at their recent matches, they lost to FaZe, lost to OpTic, but other than that, they beat Toronto, they beat LAG, they beat Seattle. So they're contending with those top squads and beating everybody that they're supposed to beat, which is why I have them at number 3. At number 2, I have the Atlanta FaZe, and yes, they don't look like the Atlanta FaZe of old, but let's make no mistake about it, they're still beating all those other top squads. So OpTic made them look like the inferior roster, there's no doubt about it, but let's not write off the Atlanta FaZe. Overall record of 9-2 with a map record of 31-16. Hardpoint, S&D, Control, second, third. What can you say? I mean, these guys do it just as good about as anybody else. And you look at their recent matches, they lost to OpTic in that grand final. They lost to OpTic in the winners bracket. But other than that, got to win over London, got to win over Toronto, got to win over LA Thieves. They're taking care of everybody else in the CDL except for OpTic. So at number 2, I have the Atlanta FaZe. And my biggest surprise, and remember, my previous power rankings were a few weeks ago, so it's been a while. But at number 1, I have OpTic Texas, who is actually up 10 spots from number 11 the last time I did my power rankings. It is bizarre to think about, but just a few short weeks ago, this OpTic squad was struggling. They got first rounded in the Kickoff Classic, and they lost their first 2 online qualifiers to Minnesota, and I forget who the other one was, but they were not playing well. And since then, they have absolutely been on fire, winning 7 games straight. Overall record 7-2 with a map record of 27-12. Hardpoint 3rd, S&D 4th, Control 3rd, and I'll just point out that some of these stats are skewed because it includes those first 2 matches that they didn't play well against. Actually, I think it was London and the Minnesota Rocker. So if you take those out, they have been, I believe it's 7-0 over their last 7 control matches. They have absolutely been on fire. We saw what they did at their own major with a 5-2 grand finals win against FaZe. They beat London. They beat FaZe again. They beat Boston. They beat Seattle Surge. This is the OpTic roster we thought we would see. The biggest question at the beginning of the year is what's going on with their search and destroy, because this roster is made up of the Shotsies, the Illies, the Dashies of the world who got their start in Call of Duty by being S&D stars, and now we're starting to see that as they played much better at S&D in the grand finals and overall in that first major. So those are my power rankings. Down in the comments below, let me know, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I think that there are a couple teams that could have been up 1 or down 1 or somewhere in there, but I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. If you're new around here, you enjoy this sort of talk about the CDL, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you don't mind, as it really helps out the channel. And with that, thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next video.